Hello, good morning. It's Richard Peers. I'm joined this morning by Nicole Anderson, who's the Investment and Innovation Lead at Redsand Ventures, Mark Hodgson, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Cervest, and Toni Caradonna, who is the CTO at Porini Foundation. How are you guys this morning?
Very
Morning.
good.
Very well.
Good, good. Nice to see you. We're a sort of few days after Sustainable Finance Live, which was the Valuing Nature event in May. And lots going on. The videos are on demand on the website. The editorial's been done. The visual record is being created. So it's kind of draw a breath moment and, think about what you took away from it. The UK has just announced that it's going to be putting targets in for nature. I think that's the beginning of a series of announcements around the world. So we spoke about a lot of these things. Nicole, what did you though take away from your time on the workshop?
Look, I mean, great workshop as always, Richard. I think this particular session, which I was in, which was essentially the investor lens and challenge in terms of valuing nature, brought out for me three things really. The first was, I guess, the activation of the portfolio manager being really one key component in the value chain, which I really didn't appreciate. I think certainly from Philippe's session, the takeaway was, portfolio managers are getting their heads around the challenges, particularly obviously around portfolio construction, but the ongoing challenge of monitoring those portfolios. But there's still a massive gap in terms of asset owners. So, that makes their job, really a tough one. The next thing I found, of course, a real kind of debate was the myriad of challenge between public and private markets. I think I'd say that really stood out for me was, again, how do we blend the overall balance of responsibility between private and public markets. And it's super interesting to see that there's a lot of talk in the news even this week around ESG standards for private equity coming through. So, clearly I'd say that was an interesting topic. And I think for the audience, really something that still remains the kind of gap in how do we actually blend the attention of the investor spectrum in caring about how we move innovation and the need for capital valuation across the spectrum. And then finally, Richard, I think as always, this was a learning experience for all. I think, there was I saw greater participation from the audience in a more blended way. I think the mix between the various parties was a really good mix. And I think the engagement levels were really, really good. So that was my summary of takeaways.
Nice, thanks very much. And Toni, talking about the spectrum of capital, obviously the investor session was, very much to do with the institutional investors, if you will, building portfolios, big asset managers looking for big numbers. But with the tokenization session, which you led with Paul Jepson, how did you take this, where you're looking to include, if you like, the grassroots?
I think there is this traditional challenge when you have a complex problem and you're looking for a simple solution, and so how do you handle that? And the classical problems where you see, we're looking for the perfect solution, and that stops us from adopting a good solution. But in this particular session, I was very, very impressed by the very concrete project where you could say, well, this is a good solution that can be implemented. And I also was very, very impressed by the interest in the blockchain infrastructure layer, that there is a big interest in a fully compliant blockchain infrastructure, and B, in a blockchain infrastructure that not only doesn't consume energy, but also offers opportunities on several layers, be it on currency aspects, on transaction aspects, on liquidity aspects. So I was impressed by the two things, by the interest in this technology, and B, by the very concrete project where I was surprised that it really is possible to implement it.
Yeah, and hopefully there's going to be a bit of follow-up on that one, because it is so tangible and it feels within grasp, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Mark, you came at it in the same session as Nicole, but obviously you bring that sort of Earth systems data perspective. What were your key insights?
Well, there were a few. firstly, it was a great session. I'll come back to that bit in a minute. But, you know, as far as I can see, the challenges that technology and science are trying to fix are just not easy. Systemic issues are not easy to grasp, and by no means are we all in alignment. That was also an interesting observation. So I personally have yet to see, although I could be wrong, anyone from the science community confirm the existence of a computer algorithm that can accurately quantify the benefits from nature, so be it carbon storage, pollination, recreation, derived on any parcel of land on the planet, and make it decision grade intelligence that ultimately everyone trusts and sees and then uses. I mean, how do you put a price on something that has potentially infinite worth, that is connected by way of infinite systemic supply chains, and burdened by human frailty, corruption, and bias? I mean, you know, these things exist around the world, and there we are as a team trying to become a motivated forum for effective discussion and change, and identifying who the key stakeholders are in there. So to get us together and start thinking about this is profoundly important, and the Sustainable Live Finance Live platform allows us to do that and fix these systemic issues. I would say that, like Nicole, the aha moment for me was the importance and role of the portfolio manager as a catalyst. You know, there's a lot of players in this: the regulators, the financial institutions, the data providers, the experts, the NGOs. We all come with our own objectives, biases, and concerns, but there is a key player in there that I think is we've underserved and we need to focus on and help, and that's the portfolio manager. That was the main bit. I think the other point is how clear it is that regulators and regulation is a critical pressure point as we think about the investor community and what we're trying to do through them. So government and policymakers have to take a lead on this, and work with the investment community to provide a more standardized and sensible regulatory landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you lay it out like that, it is a bit of a sort of a huge task to take on, but it's fascinating, I think, that it allows people to collaborate. And that's really my next question. Let's go back to Nicole. You've done a few of these sessions now. You know, what is it that brings you back? What do you find about the process that you find useful and that others, you know, perhaps might want to explore next time around?
I do keep on coming back, Richard, because look, there's so much to learn. I mean, you know, every turn of the dial, we're seeing with the stakeholder map evolving so radically. And as Mark said, you know, just if you look at the kind of communities that are really trying to make sense of where science meets finance meets technology, I mean, that is, you know, an unending challenge. So no one has the answer, and that is why I keep coming back. I think the mechanism for debate is super constructive and helpful. I think the freedom to actually ask the right questions, the freedom to ask the silly questions is always there. You make that very accessible for people. And I think the way in which solution indication or the trajectory of solutions, not the solution, of course, but the way in which we could look at potentially moving towards a collective resolution for a particular challenge evolves in front of people through the workshop, which I really, really like, because through that we instigate our own separate networks, it springboards new ideas, it creates more content correlation, certainly for me, and I think that's very rare, you know, I think that's super rare in any forum. So that's my, you know, my takeout from the way in which you've conducted the sessions and how it's evolved.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very much it's a group thing. You know, I just sort of pull a few strings, and you guys all bring that that mindset and capability to it. Toni, look at it from a sort of slightly different lens, which is that, you know, you get a call out of the blue from me, and then I sort of throw you into a group of people. How do you feel the sort of process is of a new entrant this time, as opposed to Nicole, you know, coming in finding your way through what this thing is trying to achieve, and obviously being on the day active. Was it a smooth path? Is it a difficult path? How do you sort of find the journey of joining in this group?
It was what I really liked about this group. It was a cooperative. That's not something is normal, at least in the DLT community. So it was very cooperative. I like that a lot. I was helped. I could reach out. But when I think of it, looking back, I think what is really important, and that doesn't, has nothing to do with my personal experience. What is really important when you go and look at the result, it is so condensed and so to the point, and that's only possible with all the work that has been done before the event. And I think that's you cannot value it if you don't see it. And that was what helped me most. That I see, well, actually, it is a community that wants to make impact, and not just talk for creating more hot air, and the ability to condense it and to bring it to a point in a cooperation process, that was very, very helpful for me, because I think that's where you can have the most impact, which is what we all want.
Yeah, thanks. Mark, I'll leave it with you in terms of, if you sort of say, where would you go? There's 8 hours of content. Obviously, there's editorial, there's video on demand, there's going to be the financial record. But where would you sort of go from the session that you were in and say, well, I don't know, just to listen to that guy talking, that lady talking, what's the one pointer you'd leave somebody with?
What can I say? So I'm talking as a participant, but also as a listener, as a learner, and as someone who wants to apply it. So the entire session needs to be listened to in its entirety. I really did think that what popped out of it, though, was a mechanism and a desire to trial and validate a few things. I think we all need to go away and think how this applies back to our own engagement. We've created this motivated forum for effective discussion and change. The session I was in was a great one. What we need to do, I think, is take stock of all of the messages that came out and work on the information symmetry that is going to drive the next step. What I like about these sessions, Richard, is, and I think I'm touching on a point that was made by Nicole, you're curating as you go. And that's a starting point for the next debate, the next discussion. We're still connecting some pieces together here. And for me, I'm applying that back into my own business objectives, fundamentally the importance of open intelligence to get symmetry across whatever subject matter we're dealing with, and then take that back into our own businesses. But I feel we need to come back and develop some ideas further. Yeah,
interesting. Well, look, it's only a sort of highlights reel. I feel with you three guys and so much talent here, we could talk for hours, but we've probably talked for hours. This is just the signpost. So for now, thanks a lot. I'm indebted to you as always, and we'll speak soon. Take care.
Cheers, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you much.